Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Good evening. Welcome to your Direct Connection. Congress is back in session tomorrow, and impeachment tops the agenda. During the recess, members have been talking with constituents, and tonight on the Eastern Shore, Maryland's lone Republican congressman held a town hall. Congressman Andy Harris joins us live now from Worcester County. Sir, thanks very much for being with us.
It's good to be with you, Jeff. You know,
I looked up the numbers. 3 years ago, Worcester County was a landslide for Donald Trump. It was almost the exact inverse of how Maryland as a whole voted. So I'm curious what you heard from voters there tonight.
Well, this is my third town hall in 2 days. We did two other ones on the Middle Shore yesterday. And, you know, I think what we see is what we see across the United States. We see division on this issue. A lot of people who support the president think that they should be given a chance to vote to re-elect him next fall. And a lot of the people who never liked him just feel that it's about time to impeach him and, you know, turn him out of office.
What would you say the odds are that the House is going to impeach?
Oh, that train has left the station. The House will pass articles of impeachment. The only question is how many votes they get above 218. I think it's going to be along largely partisan lines, if not exclusively partisan lines. And I think the American people are going to, if that happens, the American people will see it for what it is. This is not like Watergate, where you had bipartisan agreement that the president had done something very, very wrong and should be turned out of office. So I think the House votes articles of impeachment, and of course the Senate doesn't vote to convict.
Well, what is your read on the Ukraine phone call? You don't think it was impeachable. Do you think it was appropriate?
Look, I think the president would have been better off not to have brought up Joe Biden, but Joe Biden himself brought up the quid pro quo billion-dollar foreign aid for dismissal of a prosecutor. So in the end, look, should the president have brought it up? No, it probably would have been better if he didn't. But he made it clear, I think, in testimony we're going to hear this week from the EU ambassador, that the president said there is no quid pro quo, there is not to be a quid pro quo. So I think that takes a lot of the air out of the sails.
You know, Governor Hogan is saying that he thinks an impeachment inquiry, at least, is warranted here. Are you hearing that from any of your Republican colleagues in the House?
There are a handful, but, you know, what I urge them to think about is, you know, there's only so many things you can do in a legislature. And I will tell you, Jeff, that the impeachment inquiry will take all the oxygen out of the room for the next 2.5 months. We won't be discussing border security, health care costs, prescription drug prices. We won't be discussing important issues like that because everybody's going to be discussing the impeachment inquiry. So should we have some kind of hearings about what went on? Sure, because that'll give people more ability to make a good decision next November. But to do an impeachment inquiry is serious. I'm surprised that the Speaker did not take a House vote on it because, you know, the House as a whole should have agreed through a majority vote to go forward with the inquiry. And I hope she does. It's still not too late to do it. I hope she does.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question for the congressman, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also email us a question. The email address is livequestions@mpt.org. Are you concerned at all that this appears to be a self-inflicted wound by the president? We can also talk about the Syria situation, which maybe falls in the same category.
Oh, I disagree. The Syria situation is nowhere near the same category because this president ran 3 years ago on eventually withdrawing our forces from the Middle East quagmires we've been involved in. Jeff, the Afghan war is now the longest war we've ever fought, the U.S. has ever fought, and to be honest with you, I don't see an end in sight. As a former military officer, I think whenever we go into a place, we should have an exit strategy, and believe me, the exit strategy out of Syria was not clear. The president has said that if Turkey oversteps what it should do, there are going to be sanctions. He announced today, as you know, that there will be sanctions because Turkey did overstep what they said they would do. Congress will agree with it, and then we'll see where that goes.
I honestly can't pretend to know all the players in northern Syria, but is it possible that this small group of American service members, that they were serving as a keystone and keeping things together?
Well, I think more likely, Jeff, what it was is that Turkey, which is our ally, would not have invaded had they known that American forces are there, because I think that even the presence of a small number of American forces stopped that invasion. The bottom line is the president ran on this 3 years ago. He's doing it. He said we're going to do economic sanctions if there are humanitarian issues are brought up with this, and that's the right thing to do. Our ability to wage economic war is right now probably just as important as our ability to wage a hot war.
So you support the president's move here?
Like you, I don't have all the information. The president is privy to all the information. This president was, I wasn't elected on withdrawing troops from Syria. This president was. So I will say that this conflict, as you know, between the Turks and the Kurds has gone on for 200 years. Turkey has been an extremely important ally with our air base in Turkey that was one of the keystones of our Cold War strategy. So this was a tough call. Look, the president, if you're the president of the United States, you make tough calls. Let's see how this plays out, but I think the president's right in insisting on sanctions if it becomes clear that the Turks are not providing the humanitarian support that they have to in this region.
The three town halls that you've held, did you get any foreign policy questions? Was it mostly impeachment? What did you hear?
Oh, we heard about Turkey and Syria. And again, I explained my position in saying that the president is, under the Constitution, the president conducts foreign policy. He ran on this. As long as he has put the backstop of sanctions in, I think that's appropriate. Look, I don't know if we change anyone's minds, but we did hear about Turkey and Syria. That's really the major foreign policy issue we heard about in the three town halls. Is
there something, you mentioned Congress is going to be preoccupied, but is there something that Congress ought to be doing, either in penalizing Turkey, voting to authorize force? Should Congress affirmatively do something?
Look, I think force is not the answer. I think force is what gets us into these quagmires. I think what we need to do is we need to turn down the economic screws. They're working in Iran. There's no question that our strong economic sanctions are actually working. And I think ultimately our European allies agreed, and I think that's going to bring Iran to the bargaining table again. I think economic sanctions against Turkey are useful, particularly because Mr. Erdogan, I think, is in a tenuous situation right now. As you know, he lost the Istanbul elections. The economy is not doing well. I think that's why he invaded, why he wanted to have a struggle with the Kurds, because he wanted to rally support. I think economic sanctions could be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Do the events of the last few weeks call into question for you at all your confidence in the president's judgment or the advice and counsel that he's getting?
No, Jeff, not really. Again, those of your viewers who read the entire transcript, if you read it and you've watched the president's rally, if you've watched how the president talks, that's exactly how he talks. He just says what's on his mind. He knew that Joe Biden bragged about $1 billion quid pro quo. He knew that corruption is a big issue with the new President Zelensky in Ukraine. The president has said, President Zelensky, that he wants to fight corruption. And the president mentioned Joe Biden, because Joe Biden mentioned, and this is all tied up in corruption and the corruption prosecutor and things. So the president said what's on his mind. As long as there was no quid pro quo, I'm comfortable that it's okay. And again, it appears that there was no quid pro quo involved, and I think that's appropriate then.
Excellent follow-up question here by email from a viewer. Since the representative agrees the troops should leave Syria, how does he feel about new troops being deployed to Saudi Arabia?
Again, I'm not privy to all the information. I worry about getting involved. As you know, the Saudi-Iranian struggle with proxies in Yemen is a Shia-Sunni struggle. That struggle has gone on for 1,200 years. I actually get a little worried when we try to become peacekeepers or peacekeepers or peacemakers in a struggle that's taken over a millennia. Just like I worry about us trying to keep a peace permanently between Turks and Kurds, where that struggle's gone on for 200 years. So I share concern about that.
Democratic candidates for president debating on TV again tomorrow night. A lot of talk about Medicare for all. Given your background in healthcare, I'm curious how you feel about that.
If it's Medicare for all and we abolish, private insurance, I think that's a mistake. I think Americans like having choices, and obviously, if you make Medicare for all, you don't have a choice. You're on the Medicare program. I think the Medicare system, carefully designed to cover seniors. As you know, providers in many places, in many states, get paid less by Medicare than they do by private insurance. And if we go to a system where everyone gets paid at that rate, it's going to cause long lines. It's going to cause rationing. I worry a lot about that. The cost is measured in trillions, not billions anymore. I think we have to fix the system we have now, but to go to a single-payer, government-based system for everyone, I think is a bad idea.
Let's take a phone call. Kent County. This is David. David, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm an independent who was going to vote for Congressman Harris until he just reneged his co-sponsorship of the Tennessee Walking Horse Past Act that prevents horse trainers in the South from torturing the feet of young horses to make them prance higher. I had lobbied Congressman Andy Harris's office. He had agreed to co-sponsor the bill.
David, let me get a response to that. Thank you very much for the call.
Sure. Sure. It's an issue that some people care dearly about, obviously, humane treatment of animals. What happened is at the very end, there was a compromise bill that was proposed by one of the Kentucky congressmen. He urged me that the best solution actually, and his amendments to the bill the caller was talking about were not accepted. So he urged me to support his bill in the hope that we get a compromise bill at the end. So these issues are complicated. Again, people elect me to go down there, hear all the evidence, make a decision. That's what I did in this case. And I'm sorry this listener disagrees with me, but I used all the information I had, and he knows that I've supported, for instance, humane treatment of animals. I have opposed the horse slaughter for years. The slaughtering of horses. So, there are single-issue voters. If that's a single issue, he and I are going to part company.
Before we go, let me ask you about one local issue a few miles from where you're sitting in Ocean City. The idea of constructing a wind farm. Offshore there is apparently a fertile spot for harvesting wind power. The city leadership of Ocean City has concerns about visual pollution, being able to see a lot of windmills while you're sitting on the beach. On the other hand, it's clean energy. Where do you stand on that?
Well, look, if Ocean City, if they don't come to an agreement, U.S. Wind is the company. It's actually a U.S. subsidiary of an Italian company. It's the only subsidiary of that company. So this is a foreign company-owned project that really doesn't want to come to terms with Ocean City. The bottom line is, before the federal government forces this to be built, and Ocean City is the jurisdiction right next to the wind farm, if they can't come to an agreement, this shouldn't be built. The other thing, there are actually concerns with the Coast Guard, there are concerns with the Park Service, there are concerns with the Department of Defense, they're concerned with the fisheries. There are many concerns that apparently haven't been fully answered. It looks like the approval under the last administration got rushed through. And we need to dot all our I's and cross all our T's before we put the largest windmills in the world, because that's what's going to be put in this project, the largest windmills in the world right off the coast of Ocean City. Congressman
Andy Harris joining us from Stephen Decatur High School tonight. Congressman, hope you have a speedy drive across the Bay Bridge this evening.
Oh, that Bay Bridge.
Very good. Congressman, thanks so much. And when Direct Connection continues, more impeachment talk right after this.
Are you turning 70 and a half this year? If so, you generally have to start spending down your retirement account. Even the minimum distribution can place you in a sticky situation. Luckily, you can now use your IRA to make tax-free gifts. Gifts up to $100,000 will never count as income, but always make a difference. That's icing on the cake.
Make your gift for this year before December 31st. Visit mpt.org/support.
This is a box that showed you a world beyond your own. It was just a box, but the world has changed, and so have we. And now the box can be almost any size or shape. And you decide what you want to explore. Anytime, any place. Break out of the box with PBS.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
We are the curious.
Wow!
The adventurous.
Oh!
Those venturing out for the first time.
And those who've never lost our sense of wonder.
Whoa! You seen this?
We are the hungry.
The strong.
I must be the greatest!
The joyful.
A happy little cloud.
We believe there is always more we can uncover.
More we can explore.
We believe in the capacity for goodness.
And the potential for greatness.
The torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
PBS. PBS.
PBS.
Joining us now in the studio, our friend Professor Matt Crenson, Professor Emeritus at Johns Hopkins University. He's the author of a book on the political history of Baltimore and a previous book on the power of presidents. Good to see you.
Thank you.
So when the congressman said that impeachment is a train on the track, and I forget the exact quote, you would agree with that?
I would agree that it's left the station, as he said.
There's no break on. There's no emergency break.
I don't think so. I think with each passing week, the probability increases. I think it's likely that some Democrats may defect, but it also appears from the congressman's own testimony that some Republicans may also vote for impeachment.
Now, that's different from saying that you believe the president's going to be removed from office.
Right. It's like an indictment rather than a conviction.
And historically, impeachment used to be a rare thing. In our lifetimes, we've seen this will be one to the third one.
Almost three, yes. We've had 3 impeachment inquiries. Of course, President Nixon resigned before the vote could be taken. Might also comment on one thing that the congressman said, that Watergate was not like this because the Republicans sided with the impeachers. In fact, one of the charges, and one of the main charges against President Nixon, was that he refused, even under subpoena, to turn over evidence to Congress, this would be the Senate. Mr. Trump, President Trump, if he continues on the path he's now taken, will have been guilty of that several times over.
So if things continue on the course that everybody expects, at some point the Chief Justice of the United States, wearing a black robe, will be sitting in the Senate presiding over a trial, and that it'll look like a judicial legal matter, but it's not. It's a political thing.
High crimes and misdemeanors are not necessarily felonies, or misdemeanors for that matter. They're political crimes that involve abuse of power, the misuse of office. And in that connection, I point out that in order to prove abuse of office, it's not necessary to show that there was a quid pro quo for some action, improper action taken, only that somebody abused the power of the office for private gain. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the case that there was some payoff to the person who was being pressured.
Politically, what's necessary to remove a president with this Senate with this makeup is for 20 Republican senators to jump ship.
At this point, I think that's extremely unlikely. We don't know what's going to happen, though, over the next several weeks. I think that the situation in Syria has destabilized a lot of elements in Washington, especially among Republicans. Some very strong supporters of President Trump, Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, have already spoken out against him in quite strong terms. I was quite surprised. It could be that this will shake them a little, and maybe they'll feel, well, maybe these articles of impeachment aren't valid, but there may be other reasons for cutting his term short.
Let me remind our viewers, if you'd like to join our conversation about impeachment, maybe some local politics, give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen, or again, email us live questions at mpt.org. I'm curious about the timing of this. The House has the votes today, we assume, but they need to do some investigating and at least make a good show of it before sending it over to the Senate. The question is, when is it going to get there? If the train moves so slowly that the Republicans in the Senate can receive this from the House, either delay a bit or it's already the spring or getting close to it, and they'll have an idea who the Democratic nominee for president is going to be. They'll have polling on that. And then, speaking of political decisions, they could make a decision about who the Republican nominee is going to be.
They could, and they could decide, for example, that Trump has become too big a liability. The Washington Post a few days ago had a list of alternative Republicans, I think 10 of them. I forget who they were. But in order to show that the Republicans had other options.
And to hold their base together, they would have to find another option with some sort of blessing from Trump.
Yes,
or history with him.
Or yes, a Trump clone in a way. The problem they face is within their constituencies, at least 1/3 of their Republican voters, at least 1/3 of the people are hardcore Trump partisans. They can't win without that third.
There was a story today on the subject of why Trump's polling numbers have been relatively steady, maybe a point or two here or there, going back a long time. That with the Republican base, he's still solid.
He is with his approval rating. The same was true of President Clinton when he got impeached. His approval rating stayed the same, but his personal rating, people said they don't like him, that increased.
Interesting.
And it may have helped his impeachment is often said to have hurt the Republicans. Actually, it didn't hurt them that much. Newt Gingrich admittedly resigned as Speaker of the House, but they held on. The impeachment occurred in October of 1998, just before the midterm elections. The Republicans kept the House and the Senate. They still had a majority, lost some votes, some seats, but they remained in charge. And in 2000, it's thought that the Clinton impeachment may have helped George W. Bush win the presidency and, as he put it, to return dignity and honor to the White House.
Should Democrats be worried that this process is going to backfire on them somehow?
I think that's a possibility, but as you watch the polls, it's a declining possibility. The percentage of people who are in favor, not just of an impeachment inquiry, but of impeachment, is now, according to the average of all the polls, approaching 50%, and it seems to be going up every week. A clear majority of the public supports the impeachment inquiry, and that seems to be trending upwards too.
We have a couple minutes. You want to talk Baltimore? You wrote the book on Baltimore politics. We're going to have a mayor's election roughly 6 months from now.
And it's going to be as messy as this.
That's optimistic.
No,
well, so the current mayor of Baltimore inherited the job. Jack Young was president of the city council when Mayor Pugh was forced to resign.
Right.
He hasn't said,
no,
I don't believe, if he's in or out.
No, but one thing that's pretty clear is it's going to be kind of awkward for him to go back to being president of the city council. But Brandon Scott, who now occupies that position, has one advantage over the mayor. The mayor was elevated to his current position by the city charter. Brandon Scott was elevated to his position by the unanimous vote of his fellow city council members. That's an important base. Now,
so neither has won a citywide election.
Neither. That's right.
Well, Jack Young. Well, how did he become the council president?
He had won as city council president. Yes, he had. So
okay.
He's won a citywide election.
we could have one of these mayor's races. We did a debate here years ago where I think we had 8 or 10 people standing at podiums. There's essentially no Republican party in the city. So the winner of the primary is going to be the next mayor. And if there's 10 people running,
they're going to split up.
It could be a very small number.
As a matter of fact, the ratio is about 10 to 1 Democrats to Republican. We now have one candidate declared, one likely candidate, the mayor. Sheila Dixon has been making sounds like a candidate. And there are at least 2 other people who that I know of. I can't, from confidential sources, can't say much about them. One of them plans to have a self-financed campaign on the premise that the African American vote in Baltimore will be splintered so many ways that it'll be possible for the first time since Martin O'Malley.
I mean, and that was the path that O'Malley had.
1999. Yes, exactly. When the black vote split.
Very good. Matthew Crenson, you can still get your Baltimore book, right?
Oh, yeah, it just came out in paperback, as a matter of fact. It's been through 2 hardback printings, and this month came out in paperback. Last month.
Well, they're still making more history of politics in Baltimore,
and
but
it's more
all
fun
the
to
good
write
stuff
about.
is in Matt Crenson's book. Thanks. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And that's our program for this week. We're back Thursday with Your Money and Business and State Circle on Friday. Now, for all of us at MPT, thanks for watching and have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.